You're watching Prime News on HLN. Continuing our conversation, Joran Sloot saying he was tricked into confessing. Let me read a Facebook addressing that. Heather says, "Oh man, I hate when I'm tricked into confessing murder." Mike Brooks, what do you make of this?
As you said, Mike, right before we went out, he has told a few lies along the way. But, you know, look, with the confession aside, look at all the physical evidence that they have in this case. The video surveillance outside, at the casino, inside, right there at the door. And, you know, because right from the very beginning, when they locked him up in Chile, he said, well, I've never even heard of Stephanie Flores. Then he came back. He's given 3 statements. Okay, which one do you believe? He had his attorney with him when he gave his main confession, and they want to get that thrown out now. So, but I think, Mike, with the evidence they have, he's not going anywhere.
Pat Brown, again, with that confession, it was a detailed play-by-play of the elbow to the face, to the strangling, to the breaking of the neck. Now we're getting, I'm tricked. They told me I was going to the Netherlands. Is this just a serial liar at work again?
Well, he's been tricked every time. Of course, he's blamed victims before for everything that's happened to him, so now he's going to blame the police. And I'm sure he's going to come out with, we're misinterpreting those videotapes in the hallway with him in the coffee cups, and the police are planting all the evidence. It's all going to go that direction. But, you know, what's really interesting about that confession, or the second confession or the third one, whichever one it was, boy, did it sound like Joran Sloot and nobody else, because I don't think the police could have come up with such a stupid confession. That really came out of his head. It matched exactly his behaviors and the way he thinks and the way he tries to put blame and shift things away from himself and come up with some stupid reason for why he had to hit this girl and then kill her. So it sounds all like Joran. So,
and kept using the term impulsive act. Pat, excuse me, is he smart enough to be thinking ahead to know if I say impulsive act, spur of the moment, maybe they're not going to get me for murder one? Do you think this guy's that smart?
Well, I think Mom is helping out in this instance, because I'd like to see if there's any evidence he was supposed to go into any kind of mental health facility 2 days before he disappeared off to Peru, because she's now saying he's bat crazy, with a word in between there, and he was supposed to be getting some help. He disappears, he's falling apart, and wow, we can see he obviously went nuts when this girl insulted him and got in his way and hit him. So yes, I think they're looking at that insanity defense, but I do believe he has a rage problem, but on the other hand, I believe he was sexually assaulting her, and she objected, and, then he just got angry at her for her objection to what he was doing.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, that's a premeditated crime, rape.
You mentioned the mom. Let me read just some of the things that she says in this interview to the Dutch newspaper, saying, as you pointed out, Pat, that he was supposed to go to a psychiatric hospital before going to Peru. Among other things, blames himself for his father's death. He had a heart attack, I believe, at 57. And here's the quote from Mom, and I'll get Mike and Pat both in on this. "He lied so much that we became desperate." She's quoted as saying, he said to me, "Mom, I'm sometimes don't know anymore if something is a lie or the truth." And then the mom says, Joran is sick in the head, but he didn't want any help. So let's hit this on a couple of fronts. I don't think anybody's going to argue Patty's a liar.
Well, yeah.
But is Mom already forwarding that insanity plea?
I think she is. And I love this statement. He didn't know lies from the truth. No, he knows his lies from the truth. He's just hoping you don't know. So that's what a psychopath is all about. He's about manipulating you. And yes, I tend to think she's kind of been flip-flopping around, but I think she's leaning on the side of if she can save her son, she's going to save her son, and she's going to claim that he's having such massive problems that we should give him a break. And she actually said that. She said, doesn't that count for something, that he's been crazy?
And Mike, we had an international attorney on today, earlier on today on In Session, and he was basically saying, look, an insanity defense, even before we heard this, before this came out with his mom, any kind of insanity defense usually doesn't fly in Peru.
Yeah, well, let's get a call in. Frank's with us, Florida. Hey, Frank, your comment, question?
Hey, Mike, hi. Listen, I'm a physician. I practiced in Miami. My question is, does anybody know if this guy was ever under the care of a psychiatrist as a young child, or developmentally, his psychological profile? Did school counselors ever think that, he was off the chain?
That's a great question, Frank. Pat, personally, I'm not hearing in some of the research we've done, it's all more up to date over the last 5 years or so.
Right.
Do you know anything in his past, Pat, that would answer that Frank's question?
Yeah, I haven't heard of him getting any kind of help, but I have heard through the grapevine that the family thought he was very difficult and he was very manipulative and he lied when he was younger. But this is a kid who's always been entitled, and somehow he's always gotten away with what he's gotten away with and hasn't been hasn't ever had a comeuppance until maybe now.
Yeah.
But I think it's always been there. Psychopaths develop by the time they're, little toddlers. And so he's probably been that way all his life. Only when he gets more power, when you get into that teenage adult use, you just become very dangerous.
Get another call in. Natasha's with us, South Carolina. Hey, Natasha, your thoughts here?
Hi, how are you? My thoughts are he says that he was scared and that's why he signed his confession. Was he scared as he chose to dye his hair as he left, her lifeless body in that room and knowing that nobody else went into it? Was he scared as that happened? Or how does he think she felt as, he beat her?
Natasha, you're making Mike Brooks proud here. Law enforcement, 26 years. She's right. He had it all together to dye hair. He had it all together to tell the authorities in Chile a lie, that he blamed the death on robbers, right, Mike?
Right, that someone was hiding in a room and it was robbers. Yeah, he'd setting up that whole, robbery defense and then coming back with 2 cups of coffee. And today's one of our viewers, and I had noticed it too, Mike, when you see him and he's knocking on that door, he doesn't even look like he's really knocking on the door, but he went and got one of the hotel personnel to let him in there. So he's trying to carry out that whole robbery scheme that, I came back in with 2 cups of coffee, but she was already dead in that room, Mike.
Wow. Okay. Guys, thanks again. Pat, Mike, we appreciate it.